Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another tier list video. You guys seem to really like the last couple of tier list videos, so I'm doing another one, but I'm switching it up, kind of. Most of the time when people do video game tier lists, they talk about the games, the gameplay, the story. But today I'm going to be doing a tier list just based on the music that's in these games. Nothing else, just the music. I think there's a lot of good games out there with really good music, and sometimes the music really makes the game. Also, before we begin, if you'd like to support the channel, hit that subscribe button. That would mean an absolute ton to me. And if you even want to go the extra mile, hit that bell notification so that you get notified when I'm streaming or when I'm posting a new video. That would mean a lot to me. Thanks. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be including some games that are game franchises, like all of the Battlefield franchise, but then I'm also going to be including some games from franchises that are very specific, like the original Animal Crossing, the GameCube one. So I'll make those distinctions as they come along, but I just wanted to let you know in case you get confused. Also, please feel free to leave a comment. If you find a game in here that I didn't include, or one from a similar franchise or whatever, leave a comment. Let me know. I'm planning on doing a part 2, so I would love to do that with some comment recommendations from you guys. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Here we are, kicking off the list. We're starting with Animal Crossing. This is the original one from the GameCube, 2001, and it is just so special. It has one of the best themes in the world. A lot of music in the game takes variations upon the theme. You've got the 24 hours where each hour gets its own theme and it takes place in real time. It is just so special and wonderful. Being the first in the series, it also has a bunch of other themes that carry through each of the different games in the series, one of them being the Able Sisters theme here, and plenty of others that you'll hear throughout all of the different Animal Crossing games. And each of these little variations on the theme is just super nice. It's all MIDI instruments, it's all super cute, fits on the little tiny GameCube disc, and it's just really fun, really charming stuff. So it's a good way to kick off without diving super far into everything Animal Crossing. I think I'm gonna put this in the B tier. Very strong, really nice, mostly MIDI instruments, and has a real nice charm to it. Definitely above average. And again, remember, this is Animal Crossing just for the GameCube. It's not the whole franchise, because I do think that the music from like City Folk and New Horizons and Wild World, like, they're all fantastic. It would put it a little bit higher, but just for this GameCube one, we're gonna keep it in that B tier. Now, next up on the list, I do have an actual franchise, and this is the Battlefield franchise, which has a fantastic theme and actually some really good individual tracks from the individual games as well. But definitely the highlight and the big standout is that big, powerful main theme. It's just so good. It's just so classic. Now, other than just that main theme, there's a lot of great music hidden throughout Battlefield 3, 4, and especially Battlefield 1. The Battlefield 1 soundtrack was written by a guy named Johan Söderqvist. It's really good. I really enjoy the Battlefield 1 soundtrack. It's really unique, and unlike most video games that have this like war kind of theme, and it's in your face, you know, a bunch of brass, a bunch of strings, this kind of takes its time and it's slow. And you wouldn't believe it, but the music that's playing right now is actually what you do when you're selecting like your class before you jump into battle. And I think it's just very appropriate for that like World War I, muddy and gritty, and it just complements the nature of the game quite a lot. So just like Animal Crossing, I'm going to say this is an above average game with an above average theme, above average with the way that it does variations on its theme, and yeah, I think it belongs in the B tier right alongside Animal Crossing. Very different games, but really good music. So next up we have Portal, and this I'm including Portal 2 in the mix as well. Both of the music from both games are very, very similar, so I'm including them both in here. And usually people don't really talk about the music of Portal and Portal 2, but I'm going to talk about it. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Portal and Portal 2 are my favorite video games of all time, so I'm a little bit biased going into this ranking. Usually when people talk about Portal and Portal 2, they're talking about how cutting edge the gameplay, the puzzle mechanics, the narrative, and especially the atmosphere is for when these games came out. Now, I'm no genius or no musical expert, but listening to the music from Portal just puts you right into the atmosphere of the Portal universe, and I think it's that atmosphere that this music really, really nails. Now, if I was just gonna leave it there at that with the atmosphere piece, I think I would put it in the B tier, but we can't forget that there's Still Alive and there's Want You Gone, which are both the credits themes from both games. And that, for me, bumps it up to an A tier. I also want to just recommend, if you haven't listened to Jonathan Coulton, who's the guy who wrote Still Alive and Want You Gone, you got to check him out. He has some really good stuff, and his album Artificial Heart is one of my favorite albums. Okay, next up I pulled Katamari Damacy out of the mix. Katamari Damacy is a super special game to me. I am super blinded by nostalgia with this one, and I absolutely love this game and its sequel. I think that they are fantastically unique games in both their gameplay and their music. And I don't have enough time to play all of the tracks from Katamari or really give a comment on them, but dude, I cannot recommend listening to the soundtrack enough. Even without the game, the soundtrack alone is like a 9 out of 10. This is another one where I'm going to be including its sequel in the mix because the music is very, very, very similar. And this is going in the S tier for sure. My favorite tracks include Katamari on the Rocks, The Moon and the Prince, Fugue 7777, Lonely Rolling Star, Houston from the second game, Overture 2 from the second game, the King's March theme. It's just all so good, and I really recommend listening to it. If you haven't played this game, it's on Steam. It's Katamari Damacy Reroll is what it's called, and it's so awesome. You have to check it out. If you disagree with that, or whatever, leave a comment. Let me know. I'd love to know what you think. If you have played Katamari, I'd love to know what you think of it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite games ever, and it's also got one of my favorite soundtracks ever. So let's move on. Next up is Sonic, and now this is one I should definitely be splitting into multiple titles because Sonic has something like 50 games or something stupid like that. But I did want to touch on it because at the time it was super special and really matches the gameplay really well. Now, of the 50-something titles that have Sonic the Hedgehog in it, I've only actually played 2 Sonic games, so maybe I'm not the best expert to be rating the Sonic games. I don't have the nostalgia for Sonic that a lot of people do, a lot of Sega fans. And so really the only Sonic theme that I really care about is that Green Hills theme, which is really good. So I'm actually going to put it in the C tier. And let me explain why I'm putting it in the C tier a little bit. So Sonic himself, he doesn't really have like his own theme. And again, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not an expert on this stuff, but from what I've heard, it's really only the environmental themes that make up most of the Sonic games, which is not a bad thing at all. Don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of video games out there, specifically Nintendo games, that use level-based music, right? Like stage-based music. And Sonic does it as well. But I think when you're comparing Sonic to all of the other games that do that similar thing, it doesn't do it quite the best. Now, I would even put it in the D tier because I think that the actual music itself, when you're just listening to it on its own, can get a little bit annoying and repetitive. However, when the game started coming out, the music was super good at complementing the gameplay. And by that, I mean the music was just as fast and as exciting as the gameplay was. When Sonic came out, it was one of the most fast-paced video games of all time. And so the music had to match that excitement and that level of just, oh my gosh, we're moving so fast, holy cow. And so for that, I think it puts it a little bit above average, even if the actual music itself is not super fantastic or outstanding. And again, if you're a Sega fan and you know a lot more about Sonic than I do, link me some stuff in the comments below. Tell me what your favorite track from all the Sonic video games is. I'd be interested to know. Okay, moving on, we've got Super Mario 64. Now, this is a game that is super special to a lot of people for a lot of good reasons. The soundtrack is usually one of those reasons. I'm no exception. To me, Super Mario 64, the music perfectly encapsulates everything that the game was going for. And when you're talking about level-based or stage-based music, I think that Super Mario 64 does that type of music better than any game that came out plus or minus 10 years from around it. I'm personally going to have a really hard time putting it between the A tier and the S tier because I really, really like the music from it, but I do know that I personally enjoy the music from Galaxy more, which we are going to talk about in a little bit. So I think for that reason, I'm going to put it at the A tier, just so that we have something to beat it with later, which is Galaxy. But dude, Super Mario 64 could easily be an S tier. The thing is, I just don't want it to be too skewed, I don't want to have like 27 S tiers in here. Gosh, I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it at A, because I think there are some things where it uses the MIDI instruments in a way that's still just kind of like weird and it doesn't age quite as well. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the A tier. But I know a lot of people have nostalgia for that kind of like low quality MIDI instrument kind of thing. And I'm sure that they would put it in the S tier. You also have to keep in mind, like, this game is coming up on, what, 30 years old now at this point? Something like that. So, it not aging perfectly well. I mean, that makes sense. We're over a quarter of a century old at this point on this game. Gotta give respect where respect is due. This guy, A tier, definitely, for sure. Set the bar, honestly. Okay, next up, we've got Halo. Now, Halo I'm doing as a franchise altogether because I think there's 7 games if you include Reach and ODST. That's a lot of games if I was gonna do that in a separate tier list. But here's the thing. If I was just counting Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, and Halo Reach, this would be an S tier. S+, S++ maybe. But I'm not. And unfortunately, I gotta include Halo 4, Halo 5, and what we've heard of Halo Infinite so far. Halo 4 and 5 are decent games with decent music, okay? And regardless of how that music is used to convey an otherwise weak narrative, maybe, it's still okay music. But that's just what it is. It's just okay music. I really feel like a lot of the charm that was brought to the Halo series was brought by Marty O'Donnell. And he made some decisions that just absolutely knocks the Halo music out of the park, especially at the time when that first game came out. The choir and the synths and the orchestra was just so unique and so cool. And then you got Halo 2 with the guitars and the freaking shredding, and then you got Halo 3 with the massive orchestra coming in. Halo Reach has some really good stuff too, like the opening track is just really good. Halo 3 ODST has Rain, which is just an awesome track. Halo 2 and 3 have Unforgotten and Never Forget, which are awesome tracks. Dude, I could go on and on and on about what makes Halo 1, 2, and 3 an S tier on music, but I don't need to. You guys already know that. If you're watching this video, Halo 1, 2, and 3 belongs in an S tier. But dude, because of Halo 4 and 5 and what we've heard from Infinite so far in the trailers and stuff, just being kind of like corporate trailer music, I'm putting it in A tier. And I know that that's going to be controversial for some people, but that's really where I feel like it belongs. Halo 4 and 5 do exactly what they do to the music as they do to the story. They kind of lower the bar, unfortunately. And that's where we're gonna put Halo. However, I can't stress this enough. If you have not played Halo 3 with the sound cranked up to the ceiling and a subwoofer plugged in, you're missing out. Right now, go get it on PC. It's on Steam. Get Halo 3. It's like $10. Play it and have an absolute fantastically cinematic, wonderful gaming experience. Halo 3 is coming up on 15 years old, and I still think that it sounds better, plays better, and looks better than a lot of games that are coming out today. Let me know if you agree with me. I don't know. I think Halo belongs in the A tier when you're considering it as a franchise, but yeah, really good experience, really good stuff. Please go check it out if you haven't already. It's good. Okay, next up we've got Duke Nukem. And I just wanted to talk about Duke Nukem super fast because I think it's hilarious. Duke Nukem has a main theme that was performed by Megadeth. And I think that is just so fun and so awesome. The energy in this game is like B or A tier. It's really fun. However, the variety and the stage-based music is like a D or an E. It's kind of below average. So when you put those two things together, you just get a fun theme that's awesome, and the rest of the game is just kind of eh. I personally think that the Doom music does everything that the Duke Nukem music does, but better. So if I do a part 2 and you want to see Doom in here, let me know. Duke Nukem, pretty solid C tier. Moving on from Duke Nukem, we have Minecraft. Regardless of if Minecraft holds a special place in your heart because of the nostalgia factor, I think that the music that C418 writes, not even just the Minecraft music, but C418 as an artist, has this talent to create atmosphere where there's nothing there. He uses synth pads and he uses dynamics and he uses silence in a way that I think really strengthens the parts of the music where there is a lot of sound. And Minecraft is one of those games where I think that when you don't have the music to kind of calm you and like pace you a little bit, I think it can get a little overwhelming, especially those like first few nights and you're like trying to figure out what you're doing. It's kind of stressful, but that music is just a constant reminder that, hey, this is a game, this is for fun. Let loose, enjoy this sandbox where you can do anything, and just chill out. It is just such an awesome soundtrack. You can take the soundtrack and completely separate it from the game, and it's still an awesome album. You could crank it up on some speakers for your grandparents, and I think that they would still like the Minecraft soundtrack. So yeah, Minecraft soundtrack, without a doubt, S tier. I don't even think it needs to be argued. But let me know, does Minecraft hold a special place in your heart because of nostalgia? Do you like the soundtrack? What's one of your favorite songs? I think mine's probably Wet Hands or Tazwell. Okay, moving on from Minecraft, I'm doing something that I'm not going to be franchising out. I'm doing Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green specifically. I feel like the Pokemon games sort of all each have their own unique vibe to them. I feel like the regions that Pokemon does is just really unique and really cool. Pokemon Fire Red is the one out of these two games that I played, and I feel like the music of this game does something super fun and super unique that not a whole lot of other games do. The music of this game makes you feel like you're on top of the world. It doesn't make you feel like anything's necessarily super relaxing or super, calming like maybe some of the other Pokemon games do, but it's just triumphant like the whole time. And if it's not triumphant, it's like overly joyful, which is really fun. Even the parts of the game where I think they're a little bit like spooky and kind of scary and kind of hard to figure out, if you were a kid, the music is still there to just kind of remind you that it's fun and it's a game. And in this Pokemon generation, I feel like the music is on a pendulum that swings from super triumphant and super happy and super fun, we're playing a kid's video game, to what the hell is going on, this is one of the scariest video game experiences of my life. Specifically as a kid, I remember the cave themes, Lavender Town, the Pokemon Tower, those places really kind of freaked me out. And I think to this day, there's still like memes and jokes about how Lavender Town is like a cursed theme and like if you listen to it too long, you'll die, or like something like that. I feel like if you're a video game composer for a kid's video game and you write a piece of music that strikes people that hard, that's a compliment, man. That's like really good. So I think this is going to be another B tier here. Right alongside Animal Crossing here. And I think sometimes people forget that this generation of Pokemon music really does some unique stuff on the themes of the original Red, Green, and Blue, and the music is just better because of it. Alright, next up we've got Skyrim, and Skyrim is a really special game to a lot of people because of that nostalgia factor. But even when you remove that nostalgia factor, Skyrim does the fantasy genre better than almost any other video game out there, I think. Not only does it do that genre well in terms of gameplay, but it does that genre well in terms of the music as well. I remember when Skyrim came out, I was one of the guys who was kind of late to playing the game, and I thought that the main theme was a theme from a movie because it was just that awesome. Now, while the graphics of this game might not have been, as up to snuff for 2011 when compared to like, Portal 2 or Battlefield 3, for example, the music, on the other hand, was super ahead of the competition. I think that the production value behind this music to make it sound the way it does, it makes it sound like it's a billion-dollar Hollywood film or like an HBO show or something. The music in this game is awesome, and I'm gonna put it at the A tier. Now, again, just because this is Skyrim, there's so much depth to the music and so much depth to the game that I think that the music is sometimes a little bit more hit or miss than I think I would expect it. But when you need those moments to really hit a beat and do it right, the music is right there to back it up, and it's really well done. Okay, next up is Kingdom Hearts, and this is one that I'm really biased to. I think if I was rating this just off of my subjective nostalgia and everything that I love about this game, I would put it in the A tier because I really like everything from Kingdom Hearts. But I know for a fact that it is not comparable to Halo, Skyrim, Super Mario 64. So because of that, I'm putting it in the B tier. Kingdom Hearts has some of the best atmosphere in any game that I've ever played, and it has to because it uses so many different characters from so many different stories and random narrative arcs that when you bring them together, you kind of need something to unify everything, and so you need to carry those characters' themes and the atmosphere from those worlds that they're from, basically, and put them into the game. So yeah, while I do love everything about this game's music and what it does for the game and the narrative of the game, which is confusing as all hell, I don't think it competes with Halo or Skyrim, and I don't think I need to argue that. So I am going to put this in B tier, but man, I really love the Kingdom Hearts music. It's really good. Some of it's super chill. And yeah, it's an atmosphere that I love to be in. This game with this music just sets an awesome bar. And you know what? I'm actually looking at Battlefield here, and I think I'm gonna put this in the C tier with Duke Nukem and Sonic, because I'm actually just remembering now, like, Battlefield 3 and 4 kind of diverted from that main theme a lot, and the music actually wasn't anything super special, and in fact it was really average when you compared it to other games that were coming out of the similar genre. So I am actually going to move Battlefield down to C, just because I do feel like it's more average than it is excellent or unique or different. Okay, next up I've got Half-Life, and this is going to be the whole franchise of Half-Life. So that's going to be Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, and Half-Life Alyx. There we go, okay? Got it? Okay, good. Cool. While I do think that the music of Half-Life does exactly what it needs to do, when you take it out of the context of Half-Life, it's not fun to listen to, and I actually stand by that a lot. I am one of those people who thinks, PC Master Race, the Half-Life games are the best games of all time. The Half-Life games are some of the best games of all time. They really pushed the industry in a direction that it needed to go. The Source engine is amazing, and on every other level other than the music, even the sound design of the game is fantastic, but other than the music, I think the music falls short of everything else in that game. And now I get it, when these games were coming out, the whole dystopian genre in video games was still a new thing, and they were creating their own path, and they were sort of doing something that had never been done before. And the music, again, I'll state this again, the music is very appropriate for the kind of game. But when you separate it from the game and you just try and listen to the music on its own, it's very uncomfortable. And now you might be saying, oh, well, Seth, you could do that with any other dystopian video game and it'd be just as uncomfortable or just as weird. But it's not, because you can listen to the Portal 2 soundtrack completely separate, and it's awesome. And you can also listen to, this isn't a video game, but you can also listen to the entire Blade Runner soundtrack separate from the actual, movie, and it's awesome. So I feel like there's not really an excuse for Half-Life to have as weak of music as it does, personally. And, if you disagree with me and you think that there are, oh, no, Alyx has her own theme, or Gordon Freeman has his own theme, I'd love to hear that argument in the comments, and I'd be really interested in what you have to say about that. But this is where we're going to put our first D tier. I'm serious. I know, that's really weird, but yeah, I really don't think that the music from Half-Life 2 does anything special other than set the atmosphere. And there's a lot of games in here that do that whole atmosphere thing, right? Like the Portal music and the Animal Crossing music and Minecraft, right? They all set that atmosphere perfectly. But they're also just really kick-ass soundtracks when you separate them from their main medium. And I don't think that Half-Life 2 has that same thing. Okay, next up is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time specifically. It's in the very tiny text right there. Hopefully you can see it. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time sort of suffers the same thing that Super Mario 64 does, with the music being a little bit dated in terms of its instrumentation. But other than that, the actual composition of the music is still fantastic. You have super chill tracks in the game like Kokiri Forest and Kakariko Village, but then you also have super intense tracks and, boss battle music. But then you also have, like on a whole separate end, you have this really unique and atmospheric music that follows you throughout the different temples. And I feel like it sort of sets the atmosphere for what kind of temple it is as well. And for that reason, I think it's above average. I think a lot of you guys out there probably have some nostalgia for it and would put it in the A or even the S tier. I'm personally going to put it in the B tier because I think that I like Super Mario 64 music better, and I feel like it holds up over time better than Ocarina of Time does, especially when you compare like Super Mario 64 to Super Mario Odyssey. I feel like there's kind of, a toss-up. Like some tracks from Super Mario 64 are better than some of the ones from Odyssey and vice versa. But I feel like when you take a look at Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time, that date difference and the music difference is a little bit more extreme than Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Odyssey. And for that reason, that's why it's going to go in the B tier and not the A tier. Okay, all right, next up we've got Super Mario Galaxy, and this is Super Mario Galaxy 1, and it's an S tier. And I don't really even have much more to say. It's just an S tier. It's just so good. As far as level-based music goes, like music that comes on different stages of different levels, Super Mario Galaxy does it better than any other game ever, I think. Talk about setting up an atmosphere or a universe. It's literally setting up an atmosphere for a universe and a planet. It's incredible. And I don't even think I'm being controversial in saying that this is a S tier, like by far. I think anybody who's actually gone and listened to the entire Mario Galaxy OST would agree with me. It is a great soundtrack that covers both happy, sad, melancholy, uncomfortable. You got awesome boss battle music. You've got great themes that follow characters throughout their different interactions. It's just so good and so excellent. I could probably go on and rave about Super Mario Galaxy, Minecraft, Katamari Damacy. I could rave about those forever, but I gotta move on. Okay, next up we've got The Sims, and I'm gonna just put this really quickly in the B tier. It is above average. It really is, actually. The original Sims soundtrack is super chill. I think when the game was being designed, people were remembering that people don't actually like to do life and like build houses and stuff, and so they needed to like figure out a way to make it fun. And part of the way they did that was with the music. It's super chill and it's super relaxing. Also, the entire album is on Spotify, so if you wanted to listen to something like while you're doing homework or something, it's a good tune. I would recommend listening to the album. But yeah, really quick B tier on that one. I think it's above average. I really like the Sims soundtrack, and yeah, you should check it out. Okay, I wanted to include Tetris on here because Tetris is one of those games where it has this theme that is just undying. And while I don't think that the actual music of the game itself matters in any aspect of the gameplay at all, that's not really what this tier list is about. So I think when you separate it from that and you just take a look at how important the theme of Tetris is, you know, culturally, and how memorable it is, I think it is above average and it belongs in the B tier. And yeah, I just wanted to include this one because I do think it's one of those weird ones where like you think about Tetris and you're like, huh, the music of Tetris isn't like legendary or anything, but it is important and it's culturally significant. I feel like this is one of those ones where if you go on the street and you tell people, you know, sing a video game soundtrack or whatever, like this is one that probably would come up a lot because it's just that little jingle that gets stuck in people's head. Last up, we have The Witcher 3, and The Witcher 3 is really interesting because it offers about, 80 to 200 hours of gameplay, but only an hour of music. And while that music is very good, it's just not a lot of content for the amount of game that you're expected to play through. While I am putting this in the B tier, I will say that the sound design of the game does a lot for it. There's a lot of moments where you're listening to dialogue and you're in silence, there's no music, and you're just hearing footsteps and the crackling of fire and wind blowing through plants. And like, it's just really fantastic stuff on terms of a sound design level. So I really respect the game for not drowning out that stuff with music or, an otherwise very generic, like, fantasy sort of vibe. But I do still wish that there was more music in it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't played The Witcher 3 all the way through. I've only played a few hours of it, and I'm not the biggest fan of it as a game, so I don't actually know how well utilized the soundtrack is in the game, but I have listened to the hour-long soundtrack on its own, and I think that even just with the soundtrack, it belongs in the B tier. It's a good soundtrack, but it's definitely not as good or as legendary as Skyrim's soundtrack is, and that's why it's going to be in the B tier there. So yeah, there you go. There's my list. What do you think of it? I think maybe it's a little controversial. I think that maybe there's some picks in here that some people are going to disagree with. So I'm interested to know what you think. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe. If you really liked it, hit subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell notification, maybe. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool, huh? But yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the support on the channel. I really, really, really appreciate it. I cannot say that enough. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. I think that'll be a really cool milestone to hit. That is something that I never thought that I would hit ever. I know everybody says that, but when it actually happens, it's just weird. You got 1,000 people who've decided that you're cool and that they want to support you. That's just really cool. So anyway, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching my video. And yeah, I'll catch you in another video, hopefully very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.